Welcome to the Guide, Not Guru podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Brock. My purpose is to empower women to create authentic, aligned, and abundant lives. After over a decade of mentoring women in business and self-leadership, I found that we don't need to adopt a guru's blueprint. We need guides to help us build our own. So if you're ready to lead and be a work in progress, you've come to the right place. Today, I want to talk to you almost like girlfriend style. Like, this is going to be a behind the scenes look at what's happening in my business, Kelly Brock Co. And I think it'll really serve those of you who maybe in this season, or you may find this episode later when you're needing it in a season of change, because this is certainly a season for me of regrowth and letting go in business. And, you know, we've been talking about branding recently. A program that I've been running called The Brand right now has really been a beautiful point of bringing me back to focus in my business and what really matters and what's changed. Because I've changed since I started this company. I've changed since the last year when I did my branding. I've changed in the last 6 months in my life and business. And so, you know, what I know is that life happens in cycles. It happens in seasons, and it's important for us to not resist the change that's happening, but to gain the information that's here. And if you all know me, I'm someone who, I'm like very slow to anger. I'm like naturally compassionate. I'm naturally like graceful, forgiving, loving, all of these things. So when I get to the point of being pissed, I'm over the edge. Like I'm there, y'all. I have been in such a state of frustration, and I've allowed myself to be that way, because there's a lot of information that comes in anger. If you learn about emotions, one of the things I've learned about anger is anger tells you that boundaries have been crossed. And that's where I feel like in my business, I feel like, okay, the things that I need in order to feel healthy, happy, successful, on mission, something's changed. And so what I normally do in the past is I will, you know, as things come up, it's like, okay, how can I have a positive perspective about this? How can I have, a shift in perspective and maybe hold it differently? But there have been so many things that have shown up as a source of frustration in my life and business lately. I have allowed myself to be in it. I have exposed the wounds in my business and allowed them to be wide open so that I can see them, so that I can actually create change. And I started really asking myself some powerful questions to help me get to clarity. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what's been happening for me, give you like just again behind the scenes and what's happening in our business, hopefully to normalize it for you all too, but to then give you the questions and steps that I've been taking recently. And it's funny, I've got my journal, if you're watching this on YouTube. I was like sitting here making notes based on like what were the questions I was asking myself in my journal. Y'all, I hope they help you. If you're feeling like something's not working in my business, it is important that you sit down with it, you get clear with it, and hopefully this episode will really serve you. So just recently in the last, since June of 2022, that's really where my health crisis started showing up, where I started to have massive adrenal fatigue. I had hormone issues. I've had gut issues. So my health was an issue. And I started to notice that I was having a really hard time thinking and showing up for my business. Because of that, I've had an inconsistent presence online. So all of a sudden, that's showing me the gaps in my business. The fact that I started wondering, like, how is my business going to survive if I don't have energy to show up for it? Right? Like they say, you should never build a job for yourself. And I had built a business. I have currently a business that relies on Kelly Brock to show up. So I want you to think about that for your business. Like, is your model built around you? Well, what if something freaking happens to you? And that's what was happening for me. It was like, oh my gosh, I am so heavily touching all the parts of my business. And I have had already made waves of improvement, but not enough that the business can run. I've got employees to pay. I provide for my family. We've got a future. We've got a mission. I've got to be able to care for myself. And I realized I had built a business that right now it does not allow me to even have the time and space to heal the way that I wanted to. So I was like, okay, this beautiful health crisis was helping show me that when I'm not okay, the business is not okay. And that means I have built a business where I have a job in it, and I'm not interested in that kind of business. I started to notice some energy leaks that were happening, not only in social media or marketing and things like that, but I started to notice energy leaks even in my relationships with clients or business or people that I, am in network with and like collaborate with. I'm someone who's been learning a lesson just recently in the fact that I want to be a heart-centered business, but I believe in order for you to have a heart-centered business, you have to be equal heart as you do self-worth. And so I started noticing, the people pleasers out there might resonate with this. I'm so naturally like generous. I'm actually very naturally non-competitive. Like my competition is usually always with myself. I don't look at other people. I'm not like, oh, she has that, I can't. I'm so for other people by nature. Well, I started to notice that I was so freaking for other people that it was like, this is interesting. This is not coming back. It's not being reciprocated right now. So I started to notice there's a lot of energy of me going out and, in my own personal ways, feeling like taken advantage of or feeling just not equally valued. So I had to sit with that. It was just like, oh my gosh, tiny little things like payment plans and clients and contracts and all of these things that I realized I have got to nip in the bud some of these energetic leaks because they are costing me my true actual energy, which because of my health, I had been and have been in a place of just like, I only have so much. And so it causes you to say, I have to spend it wisely. So I've had to think about new boundaries. I've had to think about how to build a business that survives without me. I've had to think about how to be about my legacy and be about my business and my work and it run like a business, not like an emotionally charged entrepreneur. Let's just be real. Like, how does the business show up when I'm feeling anxious? How does the business show up when I'm dealing with mental health? How does the business keep going when I'm not energetically able to be in my stories? And so I'm sharing this because I hope to help you all keep refining your own process. I believe it's a beautiful thing to start as an entrepreneur. And there are a lot of things you can get away with for a long time. And then there's a point where they have outgrown you. You've outgrown it. And just like you mature, so does your business. And I'm at that place. And I also know, speaking to the cycles of life and in business, like there has to be a death to be a rebirth. And I have been in this interesting season that comes with self-growth. So you might resonate with this. I was saying in my own emotions, like, I don't fit anymore. This doesn't fit anymore. This business isn't working anymore. And y'all hear me when I say this, like our business is so beautiful. And I'm really proud of everything we've been creating. Nothing has been out of alignment. But when something's not fitting anymore. And when you're not fitting anymore. All of a sudden you look around and you're like, okay, everybody else is happy doing this, but I'm not anymore. Like, I don't fit anymore. I think I'm supposed to be happy here, but I think I want more. Or what used to work isn't working anymore. Like the exact same strategies you could be doing online all of a sudden like are not resonating. They're not working. And so all of a sudden you have to say what's changed. And usually it's you. And I did what was natural, might be natural for you too, when I started to say, okay, oh shoot, I'm not fitting anymore. My first natural reaction was to try to negotiate with myself and say, no, no, I this works. It's great. I like tried to reconvince myself that what I was doing or the way that my business is going is enough. And I know too well that one of two things happens when you do that. Let me just say this. As humans, I honestly believe that life wants us to grow. Like one of our missions as being humans is to evolve. So the business you had last year will not be the business you have next year. And so evolution wants to happen in you. Growth wants to happen to you. Something new wants to happen in you. And so we have two options. Either one, I resist it and I suffer while it changes anyway. That's what happens. You hold on, it's going to change anyway, and you're the one who's just going to be suffering with it. Or option two, I accept it, I surrender it, I alter it up, I give it back, I let it go, I release the business that was, and I open up with willingness to the new business that wants to come through me, to the new thing that wants to come through me. And, you know, I'm used to this, but it's still frustrating every time. You're like, dang, when am I going to get to a place of like consistency or stability? And I think each time, each season, you know, I find Kesley and I in my business, you know, our team, we're finding more wisdom about who we are and who we're not. But then we're constantly learning new lessons. And so I really do believe this is probably going to happen to you at least once a year, if not twice a year. Seems to be happening to us about every 6 months. But it has taught me that I've got to build something that is beyond me in my company. So I want to walk you through some of those things that I've been learning because I think it's really important that we reevaluate and we refine. You've got to reevaluate where you're committed to, where you're spending your energy and time, and then you have to refine your life again based on who you are now. So I want to take you through some of the steps of this like process for me. So the first thing is, like I said, I allowed myself to get pissed. And I allowed myself to literally, like in my journal it out, or you might like scream it or cry it or acknowledge it or vent it to a friend, however it comes out, but you've got to admit what's not working. And so I allowed myself to be really mad. I'm like, this isn't working in sales. This isn't working in programs. This isn't working for the team. This isn't working for my energy. This isn't working for our programs. Like, this isn't working in relationships. This isn't working in payment plans, like everything. I allowed myself to be stupid, annoyed, pissed, frustrated, angry. I'm annoyed. I'm super annoyed. These things are not working. And I allowed myself to get frustrated. And I think it's really important that we just tell the truth about how we're feeling, because I am naturally someone who's positive, who can just like, well, this is good, but it's not working. And it's important that you admit that so that you can move through it, because you have to come to a point of first self-acceptance. I have to first become self-aware and self-accept that this is what's here. This is the state of our life, our business, whatever is happening. So first is self-awareness. What's really happening here? Self-acceptance. Accepting all that it really is and not making it different, not trying to make myself not mad or frustrated. I accepted it. And it's so important to accept it, because if you've heard that saying, what you resist persists. I don't want to look at that relationship. I don't want to look at my money. I don't want to look at this thing. When you resist it, guess where all your energy is leaking out? It is you are spending so much energy not dealing with the thing you don't want to deal with, you're losing all your energy. What you resist always persists. So you've got to just like accept it, allow it, surrender it, say, okay, this is here. And one of my beliefs around challenges, when I get challenges, I think they're one of two things. I think they're either here as something like, honestly, my health thing right now, you guys, it took me for left field. But I believe it's this first thing. I think that our challenges are either something that is here in order to activate you, or they are blind spots being revealed so that you can shift into authentic alignment. And maybe mine's a little bit of both. But I know, like I know, that this season of health is here to activate me, because I would never pick some of the ways that I am now learning to navigate my business with only a couple hours of energy a day. You guys, I'm a generator of human design. Like, my favorite thing is go mode. I love being a high achiever. My former nature is like do it all. And I physically cannot. And if I was not physically stopped, I would not be choosing to do yoga or to think about these different ways that sales can come in without me, or thinking about how can programming exist, how can products be sold, how can relationships be built, how can all these things happen if Kelly Brock can't do them? So I want you to think about your business. How much relies on you? How's that going to happen if you don't exist? And this is where beautiful, systems, structures, hires, delegation, all of these things get to come because you're accepting and acknowledging it. And so I believe that right now, this is really here to activate me, because one of my fundamental beliefs is that business can be fun, peaceful, and easy. And this is allowing me to go to my next level of how can business be easy? How can business be peaceful? I'm finding all the places that I don't have peace, and I'm learning again and growing. So another thing that came from that, because I really do believe things are here to either activate you or to bring you to awareness about them, these blind spots, so that you can shift through them. This is an exercise I did that was really powerful, and I'm going to encourage anyone who is not wanting to accept the season they're in to do this. I was feeling so frustrated about my health and my energy and just this season, because it has been way longer than Kelly Brock would like. I'm like, oh, okay, God, thank you for that test. That was so cute, 2 weeks. And then 8 months later, I'm like, I'm still in it. It's like, God, when are you going to relent? Like, when is this going away? I've said this before, like, when am I coming back? So I kept feeling this energy of like, when am I returning back to the old version of me? And I realized that version of me may never come back. And so I wrote down, instead of being pissed about it, I surrendered it. I was like, okay, I may always have this health issue. I may always need to only work a couple hours a day. I may always need support in these certain ways. I may always have brain fog. So I started to say, okay, what are the gifts, the advantages, and the blessings that have come from this season? I wonder if I can find it quickly. I wrote them down. I wrote like a bajillion of them. What are the gifts and the blessings that have come from this season? And I wrote down all of these things that I now have capacity for. I'm going to read you a couple. Deep reliance and relationship on God. I have such compassion and empathy for others in pain and sickness that I never had before. I am learning how to actually learn how to receive more. One of the things I've been working on this last year was feminine energy and receiving. And it's like, okay, now you have to be less masculine than ever, Kelly. So I've been learning to receive. I've been deepening my trust. It's been leading me to research and understand the mind, soul, body connection more than ever. It's causing my business to restructure so it doesn't rely so much on me. It's allowing others to care for me that I, in the past, have not allowed in. I'm learning how to step back. My husband is stepping up in new ways. I've gone into deeper self exploration because of this. So I started to just write down what are some of the gifts and advantages that have come to this. I know that I'm taking this healthier, more spiritual, more aligned approach than I ever would have had I not had this experience. And that's a blessing to me. And so I'm choosing to see the good. I'm pissed about the bad, but I'm going to also see like what were the gifts that came from this season, because you never know what this season is teaching you and what you're bringing with it. So the second thing that I really have I sat down to do was I really spent time saying, what do I need to support myself in living out my calling? And not the me that I want to be, not the like old Kelly who does CrossFit and can eat anything she wants. And like, she's not here anymore. So I literally said, I took time to write down, who am I? Who am I and what do I need? So, for example, I love personality tests. Like I think there's a dance between like labeling yourself as something and also self-discovery and like the epiphanies that come from that. So y'all, I wrote down, I'm not kidding, I sat down and like pulled up Instagram accounts and like my past blueprint book for human design from Erin Claire Jones. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's amazing. But I started looking at, who am I? Let me remind myself about what I know to be true about who I am. So I looked up HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. And by the way, highly sensitive person doesn't mean I'm an overly emotional person. It means I am often sensing and processing so much that other people are not perceiving. It's one of the reasons I'm like really good at spotting patterns. It's probably why I love helping people find their patterns and change their behaviors. But I'm an HSP. What do I need as a highly sensitive person? What do I need in order to be a healthy person? Then I looked at my Enneagram 3. What do I know about being an Enneagram 3? Well, I know about being an Enneagram 3 is that her biggest fear is that she's not enough, and that she needs self-compassion, and that she needs self-love, and that she needs beautiful relationships that love her regardless of how she performs, because she thinks her performance is attached to her worth. So I started to like journal those things and start to bring to awareness, like, where have I been performing? Where have I been thinking I'm not enough? Who are the relationships that make me feel like me just as I am are enough? So I started to look into that part of my design, that part of my personality. I looked up my human design. I'm a 6-2 generator. It's so fascinating. The 2 in a generator means I get joy and I have energy to go. If you've not looked up your human design, it is fascinating. So I started to write down, what do I need to know about being a hermit? Like, what do I need to know about being a role model as a 6? Like, what do I need to know about being a generator and how my yeses and nos? So these self-inquiry stuff just helped me to be like, oh yeah, I know that to be true. I like literally took notes on myself. And it's funny because when I was in college and I would study, I just rewrote my notes. That's like when I write things, that's how I learn best. So even if I've written it before, to rewrite things, it like deepens the learning for me. So I rewrote these things. Then I wrote down, like, who am I now with my health? What do I know about what I need as far as my schedule? Like, dang, sleep is important for me, and I've got to prioritize that. That's something I am not naturally good at. I just will stay up late and like I can't do that anymore. So I started to say, what does my health need? Who am I now and what does she need? I'm learning right now to change my business to support who I am now, not just who I used to be or who I even want to be, because that's so unfair to the woman I am right now. And it's funny because I've done this in the past, like, and you may have done this before if you're a mother. and you have a new baby, your business in that season looks different than 3 years later when they're in preschool. It's just a different season, but you had to accommodate your business to support that version of you. The old you doesn't exist. There's this new version of you. And so this is happening to all of us. You may be in a season of grieving a loss of a parent or helping to care for a parent, or you may be going through, like right now, I'm going through a coaching certification to deepen my abilities as an intuitive transformational coach. That's taking a lot of my time and energy and intention. How does my business shift then? So each time, every couple of months, you're going to be in a new season. And so holding space for how do I hold the business that I need to hold now based on who I am right now in this season of my life. So the next thing that I got really clear on, I wrote down, what do I want? I wrote down, what do I really want? Like, what do I freaking really want? Not even around my business, just in life and business, like all of it. I was like, I want to be happy. I just want to be healthy. I want to be present with my kids. I want to be a conscious parent. I want to teach other women about how to be more conscious so that they can be less unconscious, wounded people in their own lives, so they can step into their purpose, so their children can be liberated. Like, I just wrote all these things that like I want to travel. I want to be around spiritual thought leaders. Like, I want to collaborate and create amazing things with these amazing people in my life. I just wrote, what do I want? And then I wrote, what brings me joy? What lights me up? At this moment in time, what brings me joy and lights me up? And so I started to write about like the moments in my life and business that just like make me the happiest. I've been spending time with people physically more and more lately, and it's just like, makes me so happy. I am happy to report I've spent time with friends every single week since like Christmas, which is only like 5 weeks, but I'm really excited about it. It brings me joy. It lights me up. I am getting clear on what are the things that don't light me up anymore. And I'll get to that in a moment. So what brings you joy? What lights you up? Then I got really crystal clear again to a deeper degree. And again, even if you've done it before, it's worth revisiting on what my purpose is. So I want you to ask yourself this question. What would you die for? What would you die for? And when I ask you that question, I'm curious, who showed up in your mind? What showed up in your mind? Because when you find out what you would die for, then you know what you should live for. And the most successful people, successful being their definition of success, it could be missions and it could also be fulfillment and happiness. Like I believe I get to be financially successful and happy. The most successful people have a powerful why. They have a reason why they wake up and get out of bed every single morning, and it is always beyond them. So it's really hard for me to get out of bed when I'm thinking about just making production for the month, right? Or it's really hard for me to feel motivated to move past this emotional state I'm in when I'm just thinking about launching a program. But when all of a sudden I get clear on what I would die for, when I started to think about like what matters most to me, and when I started to think about my kids and the life that I want to leave for them, and how I hope that they feel about themselves, and what would need to be true about me and the way I raised them and the things that I've done in the world, what would need to be true in order for me to be okay dying? There was a lot that came up there. And so I was able to get a deeper purpose in that. You know, when I was sitting and writing this down, I'm actually going to share a little bit about it. I asked myself, what would I die for? And I would die for my kids to know and feel the sense of home that comes from knowing who they really are. That they would be free to be themselves. That they would have the confidence to be themselves. That they would live conscious and joyful lives where they feel at home in their own skin, living out their unique purposes on the earth, and that they would abundantly share those gifts to the world, that they would be the authors of their own story, that they would not need other people's permission in order to move. And I would die for them to feel that way about themselves. And so then I asked myself, well, why don't they? Or why don't all children? There's a book by Dr. Shefali called Conscious Parenting. I'm a super fan of hers. And she teaches this way of parenting that says your kids are already who they are. They already have their own unique essence. And that gets covered by the ego. It gets covered by society and programming and all of these things. And so we've all forgotten who we really are. And what if we just agreed that your 3-year-old, your 4-year-old, your 10-year-old, your whoever, your child is already who they are supposed to be. And your job is not to change them, but to support them on their growth and their development. And that changed my life because all of a sudden my 2 kids are very different. And so we parent them very differently. Each of them needs something so unique based on who they are. I stopped making Rainer's emotions wrong. I stopped making Ev's need to, she's someone who like keeps all her feelings in. And then at the end of the night, she wants to tell me everything. And it was like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? And it was like, oh my gosh, this is how you hold your emotions. Let me be with you in this new way because you're showing me exactly who you are. And so I'm imagining a whole world of what if children were just accepted for exactly who they were, and what if parents weren't wounded? We are all raising kids based on our own wounds because we were given unconscious parenting with beliefs and fears, and our parents got wounded. And it's like, what if I was able to impact women in a way that helped them to become self-aware, to heal themselves? And we had such self-aware female leaders that we had entire generations of kids who were not spending the first decades of their life wounded and then trying to heal yourself. Like, y'all, think about this. Almost all of the work I do now, even with women in business, is less about what they need to build in business, but about healing their wounds. Because their wounds are all up in the way. So what if we had people coming into entrepreneurship and into the marketplace or in their homes less wounded? We would get to spend so much less time healing and more time being. And so I just got like massively excited about how I might get to affect that change because I dream of a future. Imagine a future where kids didn't have to spend decades and all the time and energy to heal themselves just to be in their purpose. What if they were accepted for who they were right away? And so there are just these things that make you get clear and make you come alive. And that question, what would I die for and what would I live for? It was very enrolling for me. And so I want you to think about that for yourself, because all of a sudden it made what I need to do in work crystal clear. Crystal clear. Now it's not the next program or the next launch or the next year or the next revenue goal. Like, I have a freaking thing to do with my life. And I needed to get pissed off enough to say this isn't working, to figure out what's not working, to say this is what I want. So then I asked myself, okay, well, if that was to be true, if I really want to work on this bigger cause with my life and I really want to help female entrepreneurs, to become so self-aware that they end up, here's why I love entrepreneurs too, because entrepreneurs, they are the innovators. Like they are the ones who are building a future that doesn't exist. And entrepreneurs are so cool because they're risky. They're willing to bet on themselves. And so they will go to the edges of things. They push the limits. It's why I love being an entrepreneur. It's like there's a certain level of risk you have to be willing and uncertainty you have to be willing to take on. And those are the kinds of people who will lead a new future. And so if I can empower a female entrepreneur and she can heal and she can find out who she really is, and then she's going to go to her own little pocket of the world and affect all the other innovators and leaders and entrepreneurs. And then they're all going to go home and they're going to affect other people. Like entrepreneurship is my secret space for change. Ta-da, you know my evil plan. You now know what I'm doing to you. So I started to think, okay, there's this really bigger thing that I want to work on. And so I wrote down what basic needs of mine need to be met so I can freaking move on. What basic needs of mine need to be met so I can move on and move all my creative energy into this bigger problem solving. And so I wrote down like all these things in business. I got to figure out a way to have reoccurring income. I need to have the correct hires. I need an investment strategy, market research, something so small, but it's real. I need inspiring places to work. I cannot work in my house every day. I wrote down things for my money, for family, for health, for friendships. What basic needs of mine need to be met as fast as possible so I can stop spending my energy deciding about them or having the energy leak from them. So many times in entrepreneurship, like we struggle with even thinking about the vision of our future because our business is in survival mode. Well, imagine if you didn't have to keep worrying about revenue anymore. Or imagine if you finally got financial belief systems that you needed to make, hold, and expand money. What if you never had to worry about that anymore? That would be life-changing, right? So you would have so much freed up energy to then use for bigger things. But a lot of times, if you're like me and the old version of me, we swirl and we just keep thinking, okay, the next thing will finally get me in a place of security, but we never build the habits that we need. So I'm getting clear. I'm like, what things need to happen so I can move past all my basic needs so I can move into what I really want. And I wrote down systems and strategies and hires and routines and all the good stuff. So this is massively important because if you are going to be an entrepreneur who is building something of real leadership change, and I believe that you can, the most powerful leaders, they make decisions and then they act in agreement right away. They do not keep redeciding or drag out the emotional energy. They decide, I've already decided, like when I decided I was quitting my career and starting anew, I made a decision. And the minute I made a decision, all of a sudden I wasn't continuing to be like, oh, should I? It was like, I decided. And now all my energy is going forward because I've already decided, and they make it happen. That's why your why has to be so much more powerful than your suffering. This is why the comfort zone is actually like someone who's making enough money that they're comfortable. That's almost the most dangerous space because you don't have enough motivation because you're comfortable. And it's actually not the comfort zone. It's just really familiar. You're not comfortable. You just are not in enough pain to make you move. And do we always have to have pain to make us move? What if the vision pulls us? That vision is pulling you forward, and that's why your why is so important. So then I started to think about, and kind of wrapping up, I started to think about like, okay, well, who would need to be the leaders that I need to spend time with? I immediately thought of the network because you are like the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I want you to think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your net worth is the same as your network. So think about the 5 people and think about, guess how much money they make. You are going to be the average of those 5 people. That's how much money you're going to make. And then when you think about the average of those 5 people's impact in the world, if you're an impact-driven entrepreneur, you will be like those 5 people, you'll be the average of their impact. And so I started to think, okay, God, like, show me the leaders that I need in order to make this vision real, because I know I want to have a business that holds space for the feminine and masculine. Bring it to me. I know I want to have a business that is sustainable, that has a great, reoccurring income that makes sense. Bring it to me. I know that I want my business, Josh and I have a nonprofit. I really want my business to do good in the world. Bring it. Like, I'm asking for God and the universe to bring me the right leaders. And as soon as they start showing themselves, I did not renegotiate. Y'all, this last weekend, I flew to one of my mentors who helps me in business. And I was like, I'm ready for your help. And he was like, okay, great. And I was just like, no, like, this weekend, can I come? He was like, oh my gosh, so wait, you're for real? And I was like, I'm serious. The minute I make a decision, I'm already over it. I've decided, let's go. So there's such a sense of power and empowerment that comes when you get clear, when you're done, when you're over it. And it made it really clear what things have to go. Like, what do you need to release? What's not serving you anymore? What can't be here in this next season? Listen, if I'm going to hold nonprofits, if I'm going to speak, if I'm going to work with global leaders, if I'm going to empower women, if I'm going to be traveling the world hosting events, like, I can't keep selling in my stories. Do you see what I'm saying? I can't worry about me being the only person who posts on my feed. I can't, all of a sudden these things just become crystal clear. Can you guys feel my energy? I'm over it. I'm over it in the best way. And if you are in a place of over it, I recommend you get pissed, that you get clear on all the things that are not working, on what really matters to you, on what's been stealing your energy, and who are the guides that can help you make what you've just now found real in your life. And then you make a decision and you go for it. Evolution is normal. I just did my own brand again. And it's like, I've changed. Of course I have, but I've got to reevaluate based on who I am now. You reevaluate, you revise, then you make a decision and you go for it. So, I'll keep you updated on what's happening, but I feel clearer than ever. I feel actually way more energy in my body just because I'm like, now I'm just open for the solutions to come to these problems. And I'm moving on because I've got bigger things to do. And I pray that for you all too. So if this episode resonated with you, I hope you'll save it. I hope you'll share it. And of course, come to the DMs. I want to hear all about it. Hey friend, thank you for listening. My goal is to empower as many women as possible. If this episode supported you in any way, I would love it if you'd leave me a review or let me know on Instagram. You can take a screenshot or tag me or just shoot me a DM. If you're looking for any kind of additional support, don't hesitate to reach out. See you here next Tuesday.